Hi, this is Ken. Tesla just moved back above $400, and that sounds bullish on the surface, but honestly, that is not the most important story today. The bigger story is that Tesla is showing strength, stress, and ambition all at the same time. We have a stock breakout, a possible India strategy shift, a serious unresolved HW3 issue, and fresh signs that Tesla is already thinking beyond AI5 and building toward its next compute era. So in today's video, I want to do more than just recap headlines. I want to help you understand what may actually be changing underneath the surface. Why did Tesla reclaim 400? Why does the India Model Y story matter more than it seems? Why is the HW3 issue still a real problem for trust? And why do AI6 and Terafab matter so much for long-term investors? If you stay with me until the end, you should walk away with a much clearer view of where Tesla looks stronger, where it still looks vulnerable, and what this could mean if you are looking at the company not just for the next week, but for the next several years. Let's start with the stock. Tesla moved back above $400, and at one point it pushed into the 401 range. Now, 400 is not just another number. It is one of those levels that the market naturally pays attention to. It is psychological, it is emotional, it changes the tone of the conversation. When a stock like Tesla gets back above a level like that, people start asking whether sentiment is shifting again. Is the market starting to price in future upside more aggressively? Is this just short-term momentum, or is something more fundamental starting to build? And this is where I think it is important not to oversimplify the move. I do not think today's strength should be explained by one headline alone. This does not look like a one catalyst rally. It looks more like a stacking effect, where multiple developments over the last few days are starting to reinforce each other, especially with earnings getting closer. That is what makes today interesting. The market does not just seem to be reacting to a piece of news. It may be reacting to the feeling that Tesla still has multiple paths to upside, even while some major problems remain unresolved. One of the stories that may be helping that narrative is the report around the Model YL for India. Now, I want to be careful here. This is not a Tesla has cracked India story, not yet. India has been a difficult market for Tesla for a long time. Import duties are high, pricing becomes difficult very quickly, and turning interest into actual volume has never been easy there. So I do not think investors should look at this and immediately assume that India is suddenly going to become a major growth engine overnight. But I do think the story matters, because what the market may be seeing here is not instant success. It is adaptability. Tesla appears willing to adjust product strategy for a tough market instead of simply stepping back and doing nothing. And in a market like this, that signal matters. There is a big difference between a company that struggles in a difficult region and freezes versus a company that struggles and starts changing its product mix to find a better fit. That second version gives investors more confidence. It suggests management is still probing for opportunity rather than accepting limitation. And ahead of earnings, that kind of signal can matter more than people think. Not because the volume impact is immediate, but because it supports a broader narrative that Tesla is still actively working through its growth challenges, not just talking about them. So no, I would not call the India story a breakthrough, but I would call it relevant, because small signs of strategic flexibility often matter a lot when the market is trying to decide whether a company still has momentum. But this is where the story becomes much less comfortable, because while Tesla is getting positive attention for growth and technology, the HW3 issue is still sitting there like unfinished business. And I really do not think this should be brushed aside. The report involving a Dutch Tesla owner who bought FSD back in 2019 is a reminder of something important. For those customers, this is not an abstract debate. They paid for a capability. They have waited for years, and from their perspective, the timeline and the path forward still do not look clear enough. That is the real problem. This is not just about poor communication. It is not just about a frustrating support interaction. It is about trust. If someone paid real money for FSD years ago and there is still ambiguity around what their hardware can fully support when it will arrive, or what the solution is supposed to be, that becomes a very serious issue. And I think this matters even more now because of the contrast. On one side, Tesla is talking about the future. AI6, advanced chip design, next generation compute, Terafab, bigger ambitions, bigger systems, bigger visions. On the other side, some existing customers still do not feel like the company has fully resolved what was already sold to them. That gap matters because future narratives are powerful, but only if the company also maintains trust with the people who already believe first, especially in Europe, where this issue could increasingly move from customer dissatisfaction into legal and regulatory pressure. Tesla cannot afford to act as if this is a side story. For owners, it is personal. For investors, it is a credibility question. And for the brand, it is potentially a test of how Tesla handles accountability when the engineering road gets harder than originally expected. So yes, Tesla looks strong today, but I would be careful not to confuse stock strength with issue resolution. Those are not the same thing. Now, on the other side of that, we also got a much more forward-looking technology signal today, and that is where AI6 becomes really interesting. A lot of people were focused on AI5 recently, and that makes sense. But what stands out to me now is that Tesla already seems to be signaling what comes next, and that is usually where the more important story is. Because if AI6 is being discussed not as a minor step, but as a much bigger architectural leap, that tells us Tesla is not thinking in short cycles. It is thinking about the next compute foundation. And the semiconductor details can get technical very quickly. Once you start talking about Samsung 2 nanometer, possible TSMC-related paths, memory handling, SRAM design choices, and data movement efficiency, it becomes easy for the conversation to lose people. But I think the investor takeaway is actually pretty simple. This is not just Tesla saying, our next chip will be faster. It looks more like Tesla is trying to seriously redesign the underlying compute platform for the next phase of autonomy and AI. And that matters because in AI systems, raw compute alone is not enough. Efficiency matters, memory matters, latency matters, how fast you can move data matters. All of that shapes real-world performance. So when I look at the AI6 discussion, I do not just see a spec story. I see a company that is trying to build several years ahead of where the public conversation currently is. And that, to me, is one of the most important signals in Tesla right now, because the biggest long-term winners usually are not the companies reacting to the current cycle. They are the companies already designing for the next one. And this is where Terafab becomes important, because without something tangible, AI6 could still be dismissed as just another futuristic Tesla concept. Interesting but distant, ambitious but hard to measure. Terafab changes that dynamic, at least a little. What we are seeing now, based on the reports, is Tesla recruiting experienced chip engineers in Taiwan, with expertise in areas like lithography, etching, advanced packaging, and 2 nanometer class processes. That is not casual hiring, that is highly specific hiring. And this is why I think investors should pay attention. It does not mean Terafab is finished. It does not mean Tesla has already solved semiconductor manufacturing at the highest level. It does not mean revenue is about to appear tomorrow, but it does mean Tesla seems to be doing something real. It is trying to gather the actual talent needed to support the ambition. And there is a huge difference between a company talking about the future and a company recruiting for the future. Hiring is one of the earliest signals that strategy is becoming operational. That is why I see Terafab as important, not because the story is complete, but because the story is starting to gain footing in the real world. So when you combine AI6 with Terafab, the bigger picture becomes clearer. Tesla is not just iterating on products. It appears to be trying to deepen control over the technology stack that could define its next phase of advantage. Now, before I wrap up, I also want to briefly mention something more practical for owners. Tesla's 2026.14.1 software update includes smaller but meaningful improvements, including the dog mode to pet mode change, Grok voice activation, updates tied to the FSD app, and some UI refinements. And while these features are not the headline story today, I do think they matter. Because Tesla's strength has never been only about moonshot announcements. It is also about continuous product improvement. The day-to-day ownership experience still matters. In fact, sometimes it matters more than the big vision stories because it shapes how people actually live with the product. I also received the update notification myself, but I have not installed it yet. I'm planning to update this weekend, and honestly, that balance is part of what makes Tesla so interesting. On the same day, you can have major stock movement, deep AI strategy discussions, unresolved FSD concerns, and small software quality of life improvements all happening at once. Very few companies operate on that many layers at the same time. So when I step back and look at Tesla today, this is my conclusion. This was not just a bullish day, it was a revealing day. Tesla reclaimed $400, which tells you sentiment is improving. The India Model YL story suggests Tesla may still be willing to adapt in difficult markets. The HW3 situation reminds us that Tesla still has very real trust and accountability issues to deal with. And AI6 plus Terafab suggests that the company is already trying to build the next layer of its AI future. That combination is why today matters. Not because one headline changes everything, but because multiple storylines are starting to show what Tesla is becoming and what it still needs to fix. For short-term traders, maybe the biggest takeaway is that Tesla got back above an important level. But for long-term investors, I think the bigger takeaway is this. Tesla still looks like a company with enormous ambition and real technical momentum, but it also looks like a company that needs to prove it can carry its old promises forward while building new ones. And in my view, that balance between future strength and present accountability is going to matter more and more from here. That's it for today. If you found this analysis useful, make sure to subscribe. I post Tesla updates every day, and my goal is not just to tell you what happened, but to help you understand what actually matters behind the headlines. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, let's continue enjoying life with Tesla. Before we wrap up, let me take a moment to introduce myself. I drive a Tesla Model Y, and at home, I've installed a Tesla Powerwall, so I actually charge my car with solar energy. I truly believe Tesla is shaping the future, and that's why I share the latest news and insights here on this channel. I'm from Japan, but I want to connect with Tesla fans all around the world. That's why I also create an English version of my videos. YouTube now lets you switch the audio into your own language, so you can enjoy it in whatever language you prefer. Most of all, I'd love to connect with Tesla fans everywhere so we can support Tesla together. I also share updates on X, so feel free to follow me there and let's connect. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel. I'd really appreciate it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.